I call this meeting to order. Ms. Clark, roll call.
Trustee Bertelson?
Here.
Trustee Black?
Here.
Trustee D?
Here.
Trustee Lucine?
Here.
Trustee Moran?
Here.
Trustee Neal?
Here.
Trustee Sarah Wilson?
Here.
Trustee Sandy Wilson?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome to the July 27th Bozeman School District Board meeting. Thank you for joining us. Public comment will be taken throughout the meeting on agenda and non-agenda items. During public comment, no member of the public will be allowed to comment on contested cases, other adjudicative proceedings, or personnel matters. The public portions of this board meeting are being recorded in accordance with District Policy 1420 and Section 2-3-214 MCA. By remaining in this meeting, all participants and attendees acknowledge may appear on the recording, which will be placed on the school district's website for a minimum of 1 year from today. Further instruction about participating will be provided throughout the meeting. Before we engage in the business of the board, I would like to share the core purpose of the Bozeman School District, which can be found on the back of the nameplates as well as to the wall left of me. It reads, Bozeman Public Schools exists to ensure high level of learning for all students. We have no BSD 7 experience items tonight, so we'll move to action items consent.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for 4.1.1.
Second.
She skipped. Oh, wait, sorry, I was one down. 3.3.1, sorry.
Yeah, second.
Motion made by Trustee Sandy Wilson, seconded by Trustee Bertelson. Any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. All right, next action items. 4.1.1 approval of 2026 MTSBA annual meeting electronic ballot items. Casey.
MTSBA held their annual meeting on June 10th, 2026. Within the board packet is the 2026 annual meeting booklet, which has all the resolutions and position statements and things that are included in the ballot. The recommendation is that you approve all items in the MTSBA annual meeting to the affirmative. If you would like to not vote yes on any of those items, I recommend you discuss prior to moving forward. And I believe that Leona can help fill in any missing pieces on any of those specific items.
So with that, I'm going to motion first. I think technically we need a motion to discuss, so if somebody wants to make a motion.
I move the superintendent's recommendation on 4.11, that the Board of Trustees approve all items on the 2026 MTSBA annual meeting electronic ballot.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Trustee Lucine, seconded by Trustee Bertelson. I guess, is there any trustee comments on the motion? I guess for those that have been serving, I do have a question. I saw the revenue piece of the budget, but they don't show you what their expenses are. Is that just normal procedure?
I can share that with you. I'm aware of that being on the board, what that is for our expenses, and we get that report every month, and I
Okay.
can certainly share that with you.
Yeah, I thought I saw a line item that says to display it or something like that, but it wasn't in there, so, but, okay.
Just a comment, I was at that meeting, and I think it's important when we look at that information when it comes out for consideration, that we do look at that, and even things like the budget, and participate in that process. If we have any recommendations for change or want something to change, then we have to take that to the annual meeting and have that discussed and see what the other trustees feel about it. But that helps shape that whole guiding principles and stuff, MTSBA, on what we want them to do and how we want them to operate. So just a comment.
Any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Next up, board discussion, item 5, 5.1.1, discussion recommendations for revision to policy 3630, student use of personal devices. Casey?
As you are aware, we convened a group of community stakeholders to discuss student well-being, and one of the recommendations that came out of that was cell phone-free schools. And after vetting options for cell phone-free schools, everywhere from no phones at all in the building to yonder pouches to technology tools to waiting a year, we landed, based on a lot of parent feedback, on a solution that's we feel is narrowly tailored to the problem we're trying to solve. It gives school administration the ability to lock down during the school day apps that we're trying to give adolescent brains a break from. So social media apps, access to the web, some of those pieces. The solution also takes into account pretty significant parent feedback around access to their students in emergency situations. And so it requires some policy change to implement this well. You'll notice that we didn't name the app in the policy. That the name of the app could change over time. And so we've left the name out. We also, in working with the app provider, they gave us examples of policy. Like any other software company, they like to have their name put in there as many times as possible. We've kind of took the pieces that we feel are necessary for this policy and removed sort of the marketing piece of it. Some sections are an addition, some sections are minor changes, and then there's one section in the procedure that's a complete rework. It was too many strike-throughs and underlines to try to make sense of it. Typically, we only bring policies, but because this will have a significant impact on our school environment at the high school, we brought the procedure, and then we also brought some draft language at the very bottom that's likely going to go in our handbooks, student handbooks. The main change to the policy is this section where it sort of exempts elementary and middle school. It's not applicable to them. They won't have the app in place. Our policies at the elementary and middle school stay as they are. Phones are out of sight. And for the most part, that has been pretty successful, highly successful at the elementary, and there's intermittent issues at the middle school, but not to the point where this type of app was necessary. And then at the high school, as you recall, our previous, sort of the status quo is that teachers are managing cell phone use within their classroom. They still have the ability to manage cell phone use within their classroom if they have a particular app or something they want students engaging with. But for the most part at our high schools, kids are placing their phone in some sort of caddy, so it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. That will continue, and at the same time, running behind the scenes is this third-party app that we've fully vetted that doesn't intrude on any student privacies. And so the permissions, what the app basically does is creates a geofence around the high school perimeter. Once you cross the geofence, if you have the app installed, it disables any of the apps that are on the that are not whitelisted by school administration. It also, it will interface with our student information system so that principals will know at any given time all of their students. And the data it's going to give them is the student's cell phone number, whether or not they have the app installed, and whether or not they've disabled, I think there's 3 or 4 settings on the phone, that if you disable those settings, the app doesn't work. And so it will give principals information on that. It's also socially engineered. Well, students will get reminders like, hey, you are disabling this. Do you know that you're doing this? And if you do know you're doing this, do you know that it's going to email your school principal? We've vetted it with other school districts that have used it. It comes pretty highly recommended. The cost is affordable. I believe we have the cost in the agenda item. We've recently moved, with some year-end funds, moved some technology costs out of the tech levy, which is pretty strained into the general fund. So this would be a general fund expenditure on a yearly basis. As with any policy reading, we'll discuss it today and bring it back for approval at a future meeting. And with this policy change, you're also approving the procedure and the draft handbook language, knowing that procedures and handbook language are subject to change as we move throughout the year. I'll take any questions.
So is, in talking to the, sorry, Kevin. In talking to the schools that have used this or have put this in place and been using it for a while, do we have an idea what the weight that's going to fall on teachers in managing this, policing this?
From the teacher perspective, there's no weight.
Okay.
So there's no teacher management
Okay.
of this. The management pieces of the puzzle come from the administrative side of things in terms of we are going to have kids that, 1, don't install the app, 2, have 3 or 4 cell phones and don't have it installed on all those cell phones. Though that would be the case with Yonder pouches or anything else we did as well. And we're also, because some of the management that staff and administration was most worried about is trying to manage this during passing times and lunchroom and before and after school, those pieces where we don't necessarily have active supervision in all those locations, and no one wants to be the cell phone police. Because for the majority of students that will have this app installed, if they're on their phone, they're not accessing something that the school doesn't want them to access. And so it kind of takes that management piece away. Classroom management is the same as it's always been. Phones will likely go in the caddies. And so I think although any sort of cell phone change in policy is going to create some challenges for our administrative team and staff, we feel like this minimizes those challenges.
And my other question is that you said no internet, they won't have access to the internet on that. Do they, I guess I had a question from a parent on this, is that, so there's enough access to Chromebooks or whatever, they all still have a Chromebook themselves, that each kid does? Okay, all right.
Yep, you get issued a Chromebook in 8th grade, and it follows you through your high school
Okay,
career. Yep.
perfect, yeah. This was a parent of a younger kid, so, okay, thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Casey. Are there any consequences if students do not put the app on their phone?
There is not a consequence for not having the app. There's a consequence for using your phone at the high school without the app.
Greg?
I'll just comment that I'm looking forward to seeing, we do a mental health survey, not we, the district does a mental health survey, is at the beginning of the school year? Is that when that takes place?
I think it's a winter,
Winter?
yeah.
So maybe we'll even see results a little bit quicker, but I'm excited to see what that's going to look like after this policy and procedure is implemented. That might be one place where we can actually measure the needle being moved for mental health with the kids. So I support everything. It's been a long process to get to this point, and I'm very grateful that we are implementing this starting this school year. And I think it's a win-win because a lot of the parent concern was, how do I communicate with my kids? And this concept takes that concern away. We're not taking phones away. Parents can text with their kids, call their kids. So I think this is super positive.
Sarah?
I really appreciate the due diligence to find a solution that worked for so many people. Like as a parent with a kid who's going to be in high school sooner than later, I just feel like the way you listened to the concerns and found a solution, it was just wonderful. So thank you guys for doing the work on that.
And Sarah said it all, but that was one thing that I just wanted to say, that I do support this policy, and I've heard from a lot of parents. Most of the people I hear from live in Bozeman, not my constituents, but they really, really appreciate the fact that we listen to them and they will have access, because it's a real thing with parents. It really is. So I think that was really great.
Gary?
Yeah, thanks. I totally support this as well. I'm just curious, is there any type of like addiction education for students to help them understand that if they use their phone a lot, they're moving into an addiction state, which can be difficult to get out of? So I'm just curious about that.
There is digital citizenship and a few topics that bubble up in the school counseling curriculum at the high school. The adoption of the profile of a graduate and all of those measurable behavioral skills kind of opens the door for further instruction around these topics. Also, the addition of our school counselors have a whole bunch of content they want to get to kids and don't have time or the bandwidth to do it. So the additional counselors at the high school will also open the door for more of that SEL. And it's kind of whether it fits in health enhancement or if it fits in the SEL side, but yeah, we need to be talking about it and educating. Yep.
I would just add, similar to what's been said, but I know you guys spent a great deal of time at vetting what the right tool was. And I know in some of the emails that we got originally was related, well, why didn't you just do it next year or this past year? And why are you thinking about it? But appreciate the time and effort that went into it. So hopefully we can get the right solution for our current existing culture. And also, obviously, I mean, to touch on a little bit on what Gary said as well, I mean, some of this is parents, and I know that we can put as much of this social stuff, I'll call it social training, out there as much as you want to, and then that it's all, this public schools should be doing it, schools should be teaching kids on how to act and that sort of thing, but a lot of it comes down to parents, and if you're on your phone all the time at home, then it's likely that your kids are going to be on their phone at times as well. So I think there's a shared portion of it, but I appreciate the direction that we're going as a district. So thank you for everybody's time on it and effort. Any other comments? Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it. All right, 5.2, 2026-27 preliminary budget discussion.
The moment you've all been waiting for.
Lacey, did you want the drum roll? Who's the drummer?
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, so today we are here to talk about our preliminary budget and what it's going to look like come the August meeting. We are still waiting on some important pieces of the puzzle, so that's why we talk about it at this meeting in July, so you get a broad sense of what it looks like, so that in August oh, that's a truck outside, I thought it was my microphone. Broad sense of the budget, so that if you do have any questions, you have time to mull them over before you adopt the budget at the August meeting. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. Here's what we're looking at for the agenda today. There are several general fund updates that we'll go through. It's mostly review. I think we've touched on all of these over the years, but I think they're an important piece of how this all plays together. I want to highlight adult ed and some of the program updates we're doing within adult ed. And then look at the tax outlook, what we're anticipating. We will get taxable value probably next Monday or Tuesday. So once we get those taxable value numbers, that's when our numbers, we have fun plugging the numbers into Excel spreadsheets and watching everything happen. It's a good week. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then Mike will give an update on the school funding interim commission. So we talked about this, I know, in February, House Bill 156, and this was passed during the 2025 legislative session. Basically, what they were looking to do is find a way to create property tax equalization, and this was one of the methodologies of how to start going down that road. So House Bill 156 basically is a funding change, and instead of us as a district setting our base levy amounts and actually levying those amounts through our property taxpayers, we will actually send the revenue requirements over to the county, and they will be responsible for levying the base amounts, and they're going to be responsible for levying the base amounts for all school districts in the county. And then they're going to take that total and spread it out equally over Gallatin County. So that's what House Bill 156 is. It's equalization. For us, our local school district property taxes on our tax bills are going to look like they decreased significantly because we're not taxing that base levy anymore. The county's taxes are going to look like they went up significantly because they're going to be responsible for levying that entire amount. So this is just a little bit of a picture of what that looks like. On the left is the 25-26 school year. On the right is what it'll look like in 26-27. In addition to levying the base levy across the county, we already do that with two different funds with the county. So we tell them what we need for revenue for our retirement fund to fund our PERS and TERS, and we also do that with transportation. So this is not necessarily a new concept. It's new for being a part of the general fund levy. So the purple on the left is Bozeman Public Schools, what we levied for our entire general fund, base and over base for this last year. The green is what the school retirement basically takes up. When you look at the one on the right, the bright green is what that Gallatin County base levy for schools is going to look like. It's going to fall onto their shoulders, and then it's going to decrease the total amount that we have to levy in our general fund. So that's a big one for House Bill 156. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a equation nightmare for setting up the OPI reporting systems. So the OPI is working as hard as they can to make sure that when we report this, it's reported accurately and that the counties have all of the information necessary to successfully levy the amounts. But it's been a tough one for them to try and crack. So it just kind of goes to show that sometimes the laws are created without knowing the actual repercussions of how they get implemented. So this is a fine example of how that's working. They're going to figure it out. It's just taking a little bit more time.
I'm going to jump in with a couple things here and there. So when we adopt the budget finally for this district in August, you all will be approving the purple taxes up on this graph. So you'll be approving a significant tax reduction with the Bozeman School District taxes named to that when we come to our final budget in August. What you pay as taxpayers on your homes and your properties isn't going to change by nearly what it appears from the taxes that you levy. And on top of that, the bright green piece, the base levy for schools on this graph, we won't know that, and we won't be able to tell what that number is until well into September or even early October. So we won't know if we're net winners or losers from this whole thing really until tax bills are mailed out in October. We were projected to be minor winners in this, like 2 mils or something, not a huge number, but we won't be able to tell that finally up until the fall. So just want to give you a heads up of where we're headed.
With that being said, moving kind of just into what the general fund looks like as a whole this year, we have elementary on the left and high school on the right. The dark blue is our base levy amount for our general fund, and the orange is our max. We've always been operating at max, so we've been operating at the top of that orange level for both of our general funds. As you guys know, and what was on the levy requests this year for the ballots was the cost of living adjustment that was approved during the last legislative session. So that thin light blue aqua line at the very top of each of these is the proposed budget. What I want to kind of draw your attention to is that green line is what we ultimately could have asked for. So although we are over our max budget, we are not at supermax, as Mike likes to say. We are not as high as we could have gone, and obviously that was really strategic. We had bonds dropping off. We wanted it to be revenue neutral. But for future discussions in future years, I think that's an important thing to know. We are about 450,000 shy in the elementary school of being at that supermax, and about 630,000 shy in the high school. So I just want you guys to have that information so that you can speak to it if the time arises. This is a screen you guys have seen a lot over the years. There's 3 different components to it. First is the gray line, and that's our K-12 structural imbalance. You can see back in 2022 and 2023, that gray line was a lot bigger than it is now. The $7.2 million and the $7 million was where our imbalance was when we went into the budget consensus process. And we were really successful in getting the safety levy passed and cutting some other items in the general fund to get us down to the $3.7 million structural imbalance in fiscal year '24. We've really held that pretty status quo ever since 2024. What the green bar is that's our prior year ending balance in our local fund. So that's kind of where we keep our reserves. You can see that we've had up as close as $8.3 million in there. We're currently at $6.4 million, and that was strategic this year. And what the black bar is that's the years of imbalance in reserves. So if we go back to 22, part of the budget consensus conversations was what is a reasonable number to have in our reserves? What should we actually be worried about keeping in there? And the 2 years was kind of the magic number that we did come up with. You'll see that fiscal year '26, we had over 2 years in that. It did drop down. We're at about 1.7 right now. We had some items that we felt needed one-time funds used for to put our employees and us as the employer on a better track. We ended up in our health insurance, our self-funded health insurance fund, we used $500,000 this year to move into the reserves in the self-insurance fund. And what that basically did is it bought down some of the premium increases that were approved at the July meeting. So a 12% premium increase as opposed to what probably would have been a 16 to 17% increase. So that's not something that we anticipate doing every year going forward. I don't know the last time that the self-insurance fund has been had a chunk of money directed into it before, but I know it's been before Mike and I's time. So that was very intentional, trying to mitigate some of those rising costs for our employees. And then the other thing, as Casey alluded to, tech expenses are just going through the roof in so many different ways. And so we did decide that our 2 operational programs, Power School for students, and then our Tyler Technologies, our accounting software to run district operations, truly don't need to go into the tech fund. Those we ended up using the interlocal this year. Going forward, we're going to use just general fund to pay for those costs since they really do apply to the operating budget.
I'm going to add some more to this slide. This is, if you want a picture of how our district is doing financially, this is the slide that you need to look at and understand. So the gray bar, as Lacey mentions, is our structural imbalance. The green bar is how much money we have around to cover that. So we chose 2 years. The goal of our district, the goal of government is not to just continue to accumulate money. That's not what we're here to do. So we have a kind of a self-imposed limit or goal of 2 years. This year we were at 2.25%. This year we're down pretty significantly for the reasons we mentioned. But the green line divided by the gray line is the black line, is the way that you can look at that. Just some more numbers. Lacey mentioned the ongoing tech costs. The Power School and Tyler combined are $400,000 hit to the general fund. You see that our structural imbalance increased by just over that amount. So the increase in our structural imbalance really was a conscious decision to move these software programs away so we don't have to go back to voters and ask for more money in the tech fund. I think that's really the big things I wanted to share. That she mentioned the I'm not, a bailout maybe is a word, but the subsidization of our health insurance fund. 12% is our health insurance premium increase this year. It would have been 16 or 17. That would have been cost to our employees and cost to our general funds as well. So by doing that, we saved ourselves by making this one-time contribution, we saved ourselves ongoing costs. So this is kind of the slide, the takeaway, because everything falls to the interlocal agreement, and that's where everything kind of comes home to roost.
And so then with that being said, this is the budget to actual comparison where we stand as of today. We are still doing a lot of year-end journal entries and reconciling all of our books to make sure that we're good and clean. So these may change ever so slightly as far as the actual dollars are concerned, but it will be extremely minimal from what you see in August. You can see here at the actual bar, it is coming in it's right around 750,000 in the red, and those are truly due to those costs that we talked about with the health insurance and the software. You can see our budget. The lines are coming closer together, I think, which is always a good thing. We do a lot of line chasing, but for the fact that we're in the red this year, I don't think portrays the accurate picture of why we're in the red. It was a very conscious decision, and one that we thought would help the district in the long term. Just a couple things I wanted to highlight and bring to your attention about what the budget additions looked like for this year. Irving Bozeman Reed's classrooms, as you guys know, we're going from 5 to 7 classrooms, and 2 of those are going to be at Irving Elementary. With that comes hiring of 2 certified teachers and 2 paras, 1 for each classroom. So there's the approximate amounts. Those approximate amounts, obviously we're going to get A and B for those students. So I don't necessarily think these are a total add. We're going to see some revenue offset for these. So for that very reason, the 3 items on the bottom are the ones that I really want to highlight. The high school counseling office, as Casey spoke to, each one at GHS and one at BHS, received 1 additional FTE to support their counseling office. That's approximately $160,000 a year. And then our COLA stipends, we're looking at that being about $1.3 million, and then our staff 3% increase that was negotiated last time is right around $2.4 million. What that means is that's about $3.9 million in additional budget expenses. What that looks like from the general fund is historically, you can see the general fund has increased every single year thanks to our supportive taxpayers. But the increase at the end of the day is $3.9 million, which ties right in line with what our actual expenses are coming out to be as well.
And that was the goal.
And that was the goal, yep. I just think this slide is really interesting, and I think it tells a good picture of where we're at as far as hiring and vacancies. This is our classified vacancy graph, and we go back to 2020. Back in 2020, you can see all those lines are really close to 0. It means that we were running really pretty well fully staffed. Blue is custodians, orange is secretaries, gray is paras. When you look, it's a nice bell curve, which is what you'll often see with these types of things, but you'll see the secretaries and custodians, we're really running close to 0. Those positions are truly filled. We're looking really good from that staffing perspective. Paras, although that line is a lot bigger, you can see it's come down substantially. So the staffing for paras is going really well. Typically, what you're seeing in the numbers as to why we do have vacancy savings for those pairs is that's a lot of the overflow, and those positions are just hard to fill. They're temporary positions, they're based on classroom sizes, and so they're just not as easy to fill as regular discretionary paras. So we're looking good, I think, from a staffing perspective heading into the next school year. Changing gears a little bit, I want to talk about the adult ed program. I know that you guys are all well aware that the adult ed programs looks a lot different than it did, say, even a decade ago. I think 2020 really changed the way adult ed was viewed in the community and the way that we have kind of grown with the program. So 27701 MCA states that adult education means the instruction of persons 16 years of age or older who are not regularly enrolled and are not eligible for A and B. That, to us, has left us with the opportunity to get a little bit creative about what we can use those adult ed funds for. Adult ed funds are permissively levied. So at the August board meeting, we will ask you to approve a budget for adult ed that we can go and then tax taxpayers without a voted levy for. So that's really important to remember. We don't want to take advantage of that perspective, but we also know that when there's a need, and if it can fall into the constraints of what the adult ed fund looks like, then we have an opportunity there. So what does it look like right now? Patrick McClellan is our Director of Student Programs, and one of the programs that he oversees is adult ed. So those names going down that row are all of the different programs within adult ed. The very first one is the one that is brand new, and Amanda Aker is going to be heading that up. It's going to be a split between an adult special education program and an adult literacy program. There was needs within the community for adults to learn how to read. So she is going to be working on that. The next one is traffic education, and that has been a long-standing program within the adult ed program. The other one that we were able to gear into adult ed is the Bozeman Reads program, which you guys obviously know a lot about. Megan Roth is the coordinator for that, and we can fund her out of adult ed because she is out there educating daycare programs. She's out there educating parents on what early literacy looks like. She's teaching the adults to help get the kids the information that they need to be successful when they get into our schools. And then the last one, which has also been a program within our adult ed department for a long time, is the ABE instruction.
Can I add a little bit more here too? So, and Casey, jump in on this too. So on the adult special ed program, the adult literacy program in particular, these are changes from the court system. The courts recently told us that we now have to instruct special ed students up to 22 years of age. Well, you saw the statute, they're over 16 and they're now also not counted for A and B purposes. So we're using this adult ed mechanism to finance those instructional requirements that we have. Similarly, and this is where I'm gonna look to Casey for some help. So when we look at adult literacy, we have found that kids who struggle to read don't grow up in homes where a lot of reading is done at the same time. So our goal with this is to kind of reinvest, double down in that adult component of their house. You know, we've got the kids 7 hours a day, so 18 hours a day they're somewhere else. So our goal with these dollars, with this investment, is to invest in the home life of these kids and get reading to be more prevalent and more active, in hopes that the adults will obviously learn to read and their kids will fare better in school as well. And that's particularly true with our ML/EL students. Those kids that are coming to us from afar don't necessarily have parents that are reading in English to them as well. Did you want to add anything to that?
Sure.
I bring this up because this is a strategic decision that no other district in the state is really making. I think we're pretty proud of this investment and the direction it's headed. Thanks.
Yeah, I think Mike covered all the current programming. We also have things, we're always looking a year in advance, and so, or 2 years or 3 years. So the Youth Resilience Project engaged on mental health in the community. We are launching that project sometime this fall. Patrick McClellan and I are actively working on that launch. And once that goes live and all the community organizations get on board, we need someone to champion it and run it. And so we are anticipating an additional 1.0 FTE a year from now on the youth and adult mental health side of the equation. And Mike's right. We have a AA Summit this week, and this is one of the topics on the list, is sharing how we are reimagining really what adult education is in the community.
switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about the tax outlook. Like I said, the Department of Revenue is going to give us our taxable value values next week. This is a non-reappraisal year, so we do have reappraisal years every 2 years. When you look at this graph, I think everybody in this room probably remembers fiscal year '24 when the reappraisals jumped about 55%. Market values kind of just blew up and everybody's taxes increased. When you look at '25, it actually came down, and there was a lot of conversation about why did it come down. It's a non-reappraisal year. It should stay at least status quo. Typically, we see around a 2% increase because of new construction. Fiscal year '25 came around, and a lot of people had protested what their appraisal value came back at in 2024. So there was a large amount of those that came down. And then we also discovered along those conversations that there was a whole lot of new construction that hadn't actually been added to the taxes yet. So I think the Department of Revenue did a good job working with us on that and getting that under a little bit better control. Fiscal year '26 came around, and we once again saw a decrease. That's because of the different legislation that passed during the '25 session, and we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. When we look ahead to fiscal year '27, non-reappraisal year, historically speaking, should be status quo. We're conservatively estimating that it's going to be about a 5% decrease in overall taxable value because of the different legislation that's coming into play here. So here's just another way of looking at it. You can see those trends over time, and you can see that fiscal year '24 when it was right around 55% of an increase. And then from there on out, we've seen a decrease, and that's what we're once again expecting this year. So here's kind of the breakdown. We have the before times, which to me is before the last legislative session. The '25-26 year is going to be that middle column, and then looking forward to '26-27 is going to be on the far right. What we did is we took an assessed market value of $600,000, a $600,000 home straight across the board, and gave you an example of what those taxes would look like at this point. So in the before times, it was straight across the board. It was an easy equation. It was 1.35% of market value created what the taxable value was. And so when we looked at the $600,000 home, it would have been an $8,100 taxable value. If we levied 100 mills at that taxable value, they would be paying $810 a year. Things got a lot more complicated after that. In '25-26, it was House Bill 231 that set tax rates for 1 year only, and they did it on a tiered system. So you can see up there, max value 400,000 was taxed at 0.76%, all the way up to 1.5 million was 1.1%, and then anything over 1.5 million was taxed at 2.2%. We did the math, and that taxable value came out to $5,240, which is significantly less, and that was the desire and the outcome that the state legislature was looking for. However, when you're a school district and your revenue needs don't necessarily change, when taxable value decreases, that means that the value of a mill has decreased. And so that means we still are taxing, we still need the same amount of revenue. And so that makes mills increase to meet those revenue needs. So that's why we've put in 110 mills there, just to give you an example of our mills still went up. However, you can see the bottom line for 2025-26. The taxes paid actually decreased significantly, which was the goal. When we look ahead to 26-27, we have an even odder equation as far as what taxable value is going to look like, and it's all based on statewide median value, and that's written into law. And so as statewide median value changes, it's going to change that equation because that equation is solely based on that median value. So as it increases or decreases, that's going to affect what this equation looks like. If we take a $600,000 home based on Senate Bill 542, our taxable value does come in significantly less at $4,800 or $4,800. However, we still need the same amount of revenue. Mills are worth less, and so we have to levy more mills, and therefore taxes paid actually aren't showing that they would necessarily be a decrease in this example for 26-27. The big thing about the Senate Bill 542 is these are for primary home residences and long-term rentals. Tax values for short-term rentals and VRBOs. Yeah, short-term. I thought there was one more. And second homes, thank you. Are going to be substantially more. So Senate Bill 542, there was a lawsuit against it. We have not heard that anything has ever come of that, so we are going status quo, and we're continuing with the assumption that that's going to actually stay in effect. With that being said, and with the change in the base general fund, I want to kind of show you what our current year looks like as far as our tax outlook, and then what next year is looking like. The biggest one to take a look at is that general fund, and that's what Mike said. It's not meaning property taxes are going to decrease. It just means that it's a different taxing entity receiving that revenue. In the long term, though, it's all going to come back to us. So you'll see that this year, general fund, we levied $27 million. Next year, we're looking at $14.6 million, which is a $12 million decrease. It's significant for how it looks, not significant for the bottom line for our budget.
Can I break that down real quick? Sorry. For the general fund, we're looking to levy $12.4 million less than we did this year. Actually, $14.2 million is our base levy last year. So we're reducing the general fund levy by $14.2 million, but then voters approved $1.8 million this past spring. So it's a minus 14.2 and a plus 1.8 to get us to that net of 12.4.
The next couple that I want to bring your attention to is debt service. You're going to see it's a decrease of 2.1 million. 1.8 of that is from the bonds falling off. And then we also have some TIF revenue that's offsetting a little bit in addition to that. Building reserve is down nearly $1 million. That coincides perfectly with our transitional levy for the high school. That is not going to be something that we can levy this year, so that's why you're seeing a decrease in the building reserve. Transportation, adult ed, and tuition. Those are the ones that are likely going to see an increase. Transportation, we're adding more routes. We are trying to meet more kids where they're at as far as making sure they have a safe route to school. So costs and number of routes are increasing. So that's why the transportation budget is looking, or tax outlook is looking to go up.
The addition of the classrooms at Irving is a significant addition to the transportation budget, getting those kids from wherever they're at to those early Bozeman Reads programs at Irving. Sorry.
Adult ed, we talked a lot about what that's looking like and why there is changes in that budget. Not only is it for FTE, but it's also for departmental needs and getting these programs up and running. And then tuition, that all boils down to the district of choice and kids coming in, kids going out. It's really basically a wash, but we levy to pay the other districts out of the tuition fund, and that's why you can see that amount there. So that's what we're looking at. Like I said, these are preliminary, and when we bring them to you in August, they will be black and white numbers. And then just a general overview of what the budget outlook looks like for fiscal year 27. We're looking at just over 70 million in the general fund, followed by building reserve at just under 20 million, for an overall budgeted fund budget of $130 million, which is about a 1.5% increase from last year to this year.
This is the last slide. I want to talk a little bit about the School Funding Interim Commission. We met last week, two weeks ago, I can't remember, last week I think it was, in Helena. One more meeting remaining. The report is due to the legislature by September 1st, so we've got, I think, 12 more business days until we meet again for the final time. In my opinion, this last meeting we had was when the most work got done. Decisions were made, direction was given to staff for really the first time since in the 2 years since we've been there, in my opinion. That list of potential bill drafts is exhaustive. The way it works, so just so we're clear, these are not bill drafts that are current and ready. This is stuff that the commission asked staff to spend the next 12 business days working on. They felt like there might be enough momentum within the commission to get bill drafts on these particular topics approved. There were some things that the commission discussed that there wasn't enough momentum behind them, so staff is not going to be working on those bill drafts. A couple things, I'm not going to go through all of them. The big ones for our district would be special education, increasing those payments, a revision to the at-risk payments. There's up there funding for ELLs, MLEL is what we're used to seeing them, non-English speaking students for the first time ever. And then, excuse me, I'll stop for there. Those three things right there could be tens of millions of dollars for our district. There's big money at stake for them. Also, if you extrapolate that out to the state level, there's big money at stake for the state, and there's a lot of folks obviously concerned with where the money's going to come from. So just because they're up here now does not mean that their full systems go. That means that staff is working on them currently to present to us. I would honestly expect that you're going to see some no votes on some of these topics up here, just based on the cost issue overall. Facilities, the third one down, is something we need to keep an eye on. Gary can speak to this real well, but probably 10 years ago, maybe so now, we added school counselors, SROs, and safety-related personnel to our facility funding list. And then our district was the first in the state to pass safety levies to fund those staff. There was a proposal in front of the commission to eliminate that ability. So if that happens, that would reduce our spending authority for safety personnel, including counselors, by $2.2 million per year. That's a big deal to us. That's not something we could absorb, and something that I'll be watching closely. I know a number of other districts will be watching closely as well, but that's not something we could easily absorb. Down towards the bottom, actually the last bullet point under potential bill draft is formula redesign. There was really two models discussed. I won't bore you with the details, but a foundational formula based on cost requirements of high-performing districts, and Bozeman was one of them. And then the other proposal we spent a lot of time listening to was the CAMPS proposal. I wanted to just let you know the CAMPS proposal is not something I think this commission is going to move forward with. You've heard a lot about it through MTSBA. I'm sure you'll continue to hear a lot more about it as the session approaches, but I don't see it as something the CAMPS proposal is going to embrace and maybe even not even take a vote on here in August. So wanted to let you know about that. The other things down at the bottom are potential report statements. Student mental health is a perfect example. Everyone recognizes student mental health as a challenge for districts across the state. Nobody has answers, and they recognize that there will probably be some funding requirements, but it's probably something they're going to put in a report that says it's important, we need to do something about this, but the commission doesn't know what that will be. And then the last thing, it's a small bullet down at the bottom, but it's probably one of the more important ones. None of these outcomes from the School Funding Interim Commission are law. There are going to be recommendations, all of them, to the legislature, and the legislature can approve them, deny them, do whatever they want with them when the session comes about. So they're just recommendations to the commission. There will be a lot of reading when this stuff comes out, a lot of bill drafts. We'll pay close attention to it, obviously. Share that information with you, and I'm sure Lance and MTSBA and those folks will have stuff to say about it as well as they're watching it too. So I think that was, the second to last slide, right? And just a summary.
Yeah, just a summary. So just kind of what's next. Like I said, we're going to receive the taxable value from the Department of Revenue hopefully early next week. We're finalizing year-end and our accounting entries. And then we're going to prepare year-end financial statements and the budget for the OPI. And then we'll see you right back here again on August 17th to set the budget for the year.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Lazy ever. Greg, go ahead.
It's really hot. Really hot. So I don't even want to ask a question because it's so hot, but I'm going to ask. So if we could back up to the topic of structural imbalance. We've been hearing about the structural imbalance for a long time. And if you could just give us a kind of a higher level overview. Is the structural imbalance for a while, we took a year and cut what was it, $3 million or, around there from our budget a few years ago. That was a long, painful process. And we were hearing that we were headed towards a financial cliff, I believe because of the structural imbalance. How concerned should we be? Is the structural imbalance just something we live with into perpetuity or not? Or what does that mean for us as trustees?
I'll take a swing at it, and they can fill in the blanks. I think what you see up there for fiscal year 27 is very purposeful and means we are in a really good place. So in a nutshell, there's a difference between our budget and our actuals, and we have this interlocal agreement, savings account per se, very purposeful that because the legislature meets 2 years and because sitting in a circle to make budget reductions is a long process, we needed a 2-year runway to any significant changes. So there was a lot of strategy going into the budget cut process to create a scenario where the savings account is twice as big as the structural imbalance. We accomplished that with the budget reductions. We more than accomplished that in this past year. And so when that black line gets over 2 years, there's questions around, should we have negotiated higher raises for our employees? Those pieces of the puzzle. But also recognizing that the savings account is one-time funds. So turning those into salaries and benefits, permanent increases to the budget is challenging. So it was very purposeful to bring that black line down below the 2 years, and we did that by using one-time funds to bail out, per se, some areas that were that needed shored up. And I have no concern that it dipped below 2 years, and nor does our finance folks. We want it to be around 2 years, and it will fluctuate from year to year. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like it's mission accomplished when looking at that graph.
That's helpful. Thank you. Yeah, that is helpful. I guess what I'm wanting to understand is, do public school districts need to take steps to not have a structural imbalance, or is it part of the animal with a public school district that it's just kind of, this is a strange way to say it, but just the way it works? Or, yeah, I guess speak to that if you would, please.
I mean, it goes back to budget versus actual. We're always going to budget for full class or for full staff for cold winters. So there's always going to be variances in what we budget, and we're always going to budget conservatively so that we don't come in over budget. So when you see that there's the imbalance between what the budget says and what our actuals say, it's purposeful. We wouldn't ever want it to go the other way, where we budget an amount and we go over budget. So I think we're running, like I said, we're kind of always chasing lines to make sure that we're staying afloat. But we don't want to be. We don't want to have too much extra budget at the end of the day, because we want to be spending that on the things that matter.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I think the short answer for me is I would need to see there would have to be some significant variables that change to move away from this like 2-year model that we have. And the chasing lines thing is significant. It's not a guessing game, but it's responding to the year before's lines. And so we are seeing a trend of filling more of our custodial and secretarial positions and paraprofessional positions, which means the structural imbalance from those areas doesn't grow as much. It's closer to budgeted. We're always chasing lines with the sub-budget and with other significant expenses in the district that you can't really predict until you live it for a year, and then you're sort of looking at trends. So I think we're right where we need to be. I wouldn't trade this graph for any other school district's graph in Montana.
Sarah?
The decision to use the $500,000 to help with insurance to like alleviate the insurance premiums going up more, that was awesome. As somebody whose premiums went up again July 1, like what a great use of that money. Will that be communicated to the teachers and staff?
Yeah, yes, it'll be communicated, and it's one of those situations where when we go into negotiations, the BEA is always surveying their staff around changes in health insurance benefits, changes in salaries, changes in other areas, stipends, and all those things. Survey says every 2 years, put it all in salaries because it impacts the most number of people. And so we are, as a executive team and as the insurance committee, have to take some ownership outside of the BEA in shoring up that self-insured system.
Sandy?
Well, having lived this graph as a trustee, especially the first part of that, was a lot of angst and a lot of work. And I feel really good about where we are. And so I don't have any questions or anything. I just want to thank, I have so much trust in our financial people, Mike, Lacey, everyone else who works in there. Casey, you're engaged in all of that. And this is exactly what we hoped for during those years when we were really, and also I might add that we had Mike and Lacey had the forethought of planning for that so that the graph could land where it's supposed to be. So I'm really, really excited about where we are, and I have a lot of confidence in you guys, and I thank you for all the work that you do.
Lacey, I just have a quick question on the mills. So those are residential mills. So what are the mills different on not only last year but this year for short-term rentals, second home, and commercial?
I think this is kind of what you're looking for, Kevin.
She predicted your question.
Nice.
That's how good they are.
Property type, this is what it was prior to last legislative session. This is as of this last year, and then this is what it looks like going forward. So you can see ag land dropped initially, but it's maintaining, and then commercial property also dropped, but now it's going to be increasing a little bit. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah.
Everyone pays the same number of mills. So it doesn't
Oh, right.
matter if we levy whatever number of
It's off
mills
their
we levy,
value.
it's the same on residential as it is on that property, as it is on anything ag land. It's the same number of mills. The value of the property from a tax perspective is what changes.
Right. So it seems like on this model, actually, Bozeman, once again, is paying more because we have, if you take the median price of homes, all that sort of thing, throughout the state of Montana, Bozeman's always more.
I think what you're looking at here is the way I would characterize it is the lower value homes everywhere are winners, and higher value homes everywhere are going to be picking up more of the slack. So this is meant to direct, you see just looking at the bottom row, 0.76% on the first $400,000 now, and the median value is pretty close to that 378. So 0.76% stays unchanged. Then this year it's 1.1% for the next chunk. Next year it's 0.9%. So again, the lower value properties here are going to see more tax relief. Lower value owner occupied or long-term rental properties are going to see the tax relief, and it's going to be redistributed to your higher value properties everywhere, whether it's here, Flathead Lake, or the Yellowstone Club, and onto business as well.
Right. But in general, Bozeman's still going to pay the
Your
biggest.
point stands, yeah. There's a lot more higher valued properties here than
If you
there
say
are elsewhere.
residential, there's $325,000, or excuse me, 378. There's not very many things that are available for 378 in our market.
Right.
So, okay.
And Kevin, can I make just a quick comment on the budget? We're purposeful about bringing this adult education information to you. We're doing a lot of good things in this district. We are doing some strategic investments to address the issues that you have all brought up as part of the long-range strategic plan. We can tie cost to each one of those priorities that you have all addressed. And what I think what we need to know and what our public needs to know is that we're having some success. We've got the highest student achievement consistently of any AA district in the state by a wide margin. We also have the lowest number of mills levied by any district, AA district, again, by a wide margin. That'll happen this year as well. And our bond rating is better than any other district in the state. So our taxpayers, we're getting some value, I think, out of this district, and folks need to know that. High achieving, low cost due to a strong tax base that we've got, investments that this community has made in the school district, and our decisions about, growth have really paid dividends for us and for our taxpayers. So don't forget that. The budget is tied inextricably to that long-range strategic plan, and we're not perfect. We've got room to move and definitely space to grow, but we're doing a lot of really good things.
Liana? Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks to both of you. That's a lot, and I just appreciate all the hard work that goes into making that happen. Same for you, Casey. Can you pull up the thing on the school funding interim commission? Right. Okay. So going forward, you're saying like the camp's proposal looks dead on arrival?
I don't know that it's dead on. I wouldn't. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you clarified that. I don't think the camp's proposal is necessarily dead on arrival. I don't necessarily think the commission is going to take it on and maybe champion it the way some folks were hoping. I see resistance there from just listening to the conversation. There was questions about including it just as an attachment, the camp's proposal just as an attachment, without the commission making an opinion on it one way or the other. And there was resistance to just including it as a note within the report. Does that mean that it can't go to the legislature and a legislator can't champion it and it can't become law? No, absolutely not. That could absolutely happen. I just don't know that it's going to be through the commission mechanism that it gets there.
Do you know if there was specifics to it, or I don't know if you can illuminate any more on that? I was just curious.
Leo's question is whether there's specific reasons. I haven't heard them other than the price tag that's hanging from it. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of taxpayer investment to get to that. It's a question of how much more money schools need and how much more capacity the taxpayers have, both from an income tax perspective and a property tax perspective and all the things that go into the state budget. I just think it's a capacity issue at this point, generally.
Thanks.
Gary?
Yeah, just to add to that, I agree with Mike on what he's saying. The school funding interim commission meetings, I was in on those meetings 8 to 5 last week. The next meetings are the 12th and 13th of August, so they're 3 weeks. And I think the draft bills that they're going to come forward with regarding funding, I think there's an effort to fund some of the topics. Don't know how much. But as you know, my pitch to the School Funding Interim Commission has not been necessarily on funding, but it's on bullet number 5, School Funding Interim Commission going forward. So there's a couple bill drafts on that are pretty good. It got some good momentum to have an ongoing process to really look at this, and I think it's going to take time to really establish a real good funding formula. But whatever this commission comes up with, that goes to the legislature, and it could totally change. And that's why I think it's critical, absolutely critical right now at this time that we participate in that process. So our current legislators have to hear from us. So like when we have a legislator meeting in November or whenever, if we're going to meet with them, I think having some sort of a specific plan for them to communicate to them and then advocate for that, because they need to hear from actual trustees. As far as I know, I'm the only trustee that has provided public comment in the last couple meetings. So my thought on this is hopefully we can get all of us engaged in this process and participate. There's many ways to participate, so I'm glad to help in that in any way, so thanks. And I want to say, the commission has gone to Mike several times to explain finance stuff. So, and you do a great job. I'm glad you're on that commission, so.
Casey?
I think I think school boards and our board in particular are going to be in a very interesting position as we approach the legislative session. And I think the documents and the stances taken by this board are really going to matter. I think you're going to have an interesting, some of those items up there, if they're championed by the commission, as written currently, there's significant dollars tied to them. So for example, funding for ELLs, we fund approximately 10 FTE out of the general fund. The number they're throwing around, we could fund 15 FTE and take it all out of the general fund. And so those are significant dollars. I think we're going to have this quandary and have to decide whether, where does the camp's proposal and fit within this? And where does our board land in terms of championing a camp's proposal or championing what the School Funding Interim Commission is proposing? And I think we're going to have to make some difficult decisions on what the best strategy is, and has the because at the end of the day, something is better than nothing, and if a couple of those could get funded with the full support of the School Funding Interim Commission, that might be the best strategy, as opposed to going all in on a proposal that may or may not get funded. I don't know that yet. I think there's a lot more conversations and politics, and it'd be interesting to see what happens in 3 weeks in Helena.
Leanna, do you have anything else? All right, any other comments, questions? Thank you. Thanks, Lacey. Thank you, Mike. Casey. Public comment? No. Reports, 7.1. Mars, you don't want to stay here for a little bit longer? Not warm enough yet?
Chair
Mike?
Black, I did have two quick reports.
right.
Good news for you all. We have solar electricity on Gallatin High and Bozeman High. It's up and running as of a couple of weeks ago. We're also going to, you probably saw it when you walked in the door, but we're construction underway at the Wilson. It wouldn't be summertime without jackhammering at the Wilson. So a lot of renovation, particularly on the first floor. That's expected to wrap up within 60 days or so for the full project.
I do have one quick one. Mr. Van Buren, if you go to the webpage, we've recently updated and have a whole new structure for the org chart that will help us keep it updated and better tell the story of the district. So from the homepage, if you click on menu, upper right, go to our district and departments. There's now a link, scroll down to the BSD7 org chart. It'll take a second here to, it's thinking. And then click the little Lucid AI icon and it'll get rid of that. So it's a little, instead of being this big, long, exhaustive list, what you have on that front page is the executive cabinet team. Anytime you see the little blue circle, there's a drop down below it. So like if you scroll over Mars, you can make those two people disappear. Those are direct reports. Then along the bottom are all of sort of the major functions and departments. So we have building administration, overseen by Mike and Mars. You move to data and technology, Mike and all of the folks in technology. And they're special education and student health, adult ed, MLEL, curriculum, business, facilities. Go to the business HR payroll one. This is, as you know, part of the remodel downstairs and the retirement of Pat Strauss. And so we're trying to show that while Lacey oversees the personnel and will evaluate the personnel within business, HR, and payroll. Mars is the HR director on the personnel support side. So if someone comes in with, it's what she's been spending a lot of time on this summer already, hit the ground running. Personnel issues, good, bad, or indifferent, kind of flow to Mars, and then all of the paperwork and contracts and stipends and all those functions flow to Lacey and her team. This is also like when we make a change live on this software, it updates the website. The previous org chart we had was actually an Excel spreadsheet, and all of those little borders and lines were hand drawn as borders in individual cells. So we've moved away from that and moved to this.
Anyone else? All right, 7.2, trustees, requests, calendars, concerns, reports, future topics. Seeing none, I adjourn the meeting.